Hey, everybody. I am on the line right now with Mick Foley, who you know as a world champion wrestler, author, stand up performer, and now he's in a movie called 12 Hour Shift. It's coming out October 2nd. How are you doing today, Mick?
Everything is pretty good. Thanks for talking to me.
When I was speaking with David a few weeks ago about his documentary, he'd mentioned this film, and at first glance, it really just looked like a horror movie. But when I finally got a chance to sit down and watch it, it has elements of black comedy and the horror genre. It's witty, and it's definitely not something that people would expect Mick Foley to be in, since you're have a nice day and Saint Mick and very polite. So how did you get involved in this project?
Yeah. Well, if you recall, I did for a few years portray dark characters when I was Mankind, and there was an element of darkness to Cactus Jack at certain times as well. So it was fairly easy to to rediscover that. But the main thing is the script was really fun, and I could tell it had the potential to be a good movie. You never know with these things, but I've told my actors much more experienced than I am that sometimes you're really surprised with either how good something comes out or how much less enjoyable it is than you thought it might be. And in this case, from all the reviews I'm hearing, it seems like Bria Grant hit a home run with her direction, and the script is every bit as good as I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think people, like, if they're going to sit down and watch it and they aren't sure what it is, and maybe they're just checking out because they're wrestling fans or whatever the reason, I really think they're going to be pleasantly surprised, because you understand the premise right away, and it really goes off the rails like really quickly. And I think that's what I enjoyed. And, like, it doesn't spend time in reality too much. It just, here's what's going on, and then it gets batty. And one of the cool things, or one of the other unexpected things, is I don't think it's giving away too much where I say you play a foul-mouthed gangster. And if you're familiar with your stage shows, that's a big selling point. Like, saying the F word was, that was the big punch at the end of a few of them. So how do you not only make the most of your screen time, but get into that mindset? And because you're using profanity, you're a wrestler, but you're limited to your promo time or match time. So how did you bridge the gap, so to speak?
Well, you correctly noted. I just dropped the one F-bomb on people at the end of like an hour and a half show. So there's it's like a big callback, and in some ways my finishing move. I don't make people wait 90 minutes for the F-bomb in this in this movie. I kind of hit them with it right away, and it's fun to play somebody different than I am, because I don't curse much in real life. I think my daughter says she's heard me drop the F-bomb twice in her life, and she's 26. Outside of my shows, she's heard me drop it twice. So it's fun. It's like, being a chance to play with a new toy. And I think I make the most of it. And speaking of playing, I'm kind of playing dress up. And in case anyone wonders, am I paying tribute to The Rock with the shiny shirt? The answer is absolutely I am. So I saw that as one of my choices, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm wearing that shirt for sure.
Yeah, that I want to talk more about it, but I want people to sit down and watch the movie. But you really, I think the right way to put it is, there's so often, like, you see a movie with a wrestler in it, and you're like, okay, like, I'm gonna watch it because the wrestler, and sometimes it's not as successful as other times. But I mean, this is really, like, I forget that it's Mick Foley in a movie. Like, I'm just like, wow, like, you really made great use of your screen time, and you forget that you're like that nice guy. And I know you alluded to playing darker characters earlier in your career, but when you're in front of an audience like the WWE universe for so long, and then you have a movie like the Peanut Butter Falcon last year, and then you see this. It's it's almost like a culture shock. So it was really fun. I really hope people check it out.
Well, I hope so too. I feel really lucky to have had two good movies back to back. So hopefully Hollywood, if they've got their eye on the small but important role and someone to come in and put their own stamp on it. Yeah, I do enjoy doing these things. And working with David, was a lot of fun behind the scenes, hanging out with him. And I loved the actress that I worked with, Chloe Farnsworth, was so much fun. And I hope that this is a big career moment for her. She's great in it, and having the chance to do 15, 20 takes in a row was really a blast for someone of her stature.
Yeah, and one of the other things I did get to talk to David about was he mentioned one of his goals was to get wrestlers into SAG-AFTRA, and this is one of the films he mentioned during our conversation. Another one, he said he worked with Eric Rowan, Joseph Rude, and as somebody who you already made your career, you've done well for yourself, but as you said, if there's anybody looking for a certain role in Hollywood, like, do you gravitate more towards that attitude instead of looking for a certain role? Like, hey, who understands the wrestler mentality, not who's going to cast Mick?
Well, honestly, the only roles I've ever received were ones that were specifically, meant for me. I've never auditioned successfully. After a while, I stopped even auditioning because it was just like the redneck bartender, the redneck bouncer. Those are the only things I got calls for, and I never once got the job. So I feel good. I mean, if people take a look at my IMDb, like, I've been in a lot of things, and they've all specifically been from directors and casting people who wanted me in their movies. So, like I said, with Peanut Butter Falcon last year, getting extraordinary reviews, I think like 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. And universally loved, I would say. Like, I think everyone who watches that movie falls in love with it. And now with that 12-hour shift, hopefully, more directors will be on the lookout and offer me. I'm not saying I can carry a movie by any means, but I do like playing these small but pivotal roles and put my own twists on them.
I kind of want to get into your wrestling career a little bit, because we mentioned, you're playing a foul-mouthed gangster here, and it's different than what wrestling fans are used to in the last few years from you in that universe. But can you just kind of, maybe get philosophical on how you've been able to stay so kind and, have that really, like, just a good attitude towards everything, especially in an industry. You're in two industries, wrestling and acting, that there's a darker side to it, as we've seen.
Yeah. Well, I do try to keep things positive. People who've been checking out my social media have seen I've ventured in. I've been weighing in on the importance of wearing masks, and occasionally mentioning my displeasure with the current president, because I just feel like it's something I have to do. And I understand not everybody's going to agree with me, and a lot of people don't vociferously. But I'm really encouraged by the people who have reached out and have said, "Thank you very much for speaking up." And I try to do it in a kind manner where we include everyone, try not to exclude people. But it's difficult to stay really positive during a difficult time. But I try to do it. I was looking at a future where I had zero on my plate, when the coronavirus came along, wiped out, 6 months of bookings or whatever. So I've really just tried to stay positive. I've enjoyed doing these cameo videos, putting smiles on faces. And it's really, it becomes easier over the years. The more years that go by, the more you realize how lucky you are that people embrace you in this way, and that you're still allowed to do roles, do, videos, and try to make a little difference. And even if it's just as simple as putting a smile on someone's face.
obviously Corona's affected everyone, but you especially, like visiting kids, and you're not playing Santa Claus, you are Saint Nick. So I won't besmirch you like that. Like, you are Santa. But
Thank you.
have you started, trying to figure out how you're going to pull that off this year?
Yeah, it's going to be strictly by video. I do have one epic appearance for a good friend in the wrestling business that I'm going to do on Christmas Eve. That'll be socially distanced. But I've reached out to a lot of my colleagues who I've written letters to in the past as the big guy. Big guy tells me it's okay to write on his behalf. And to do the videos. So I'm actually looking forward to it. I've got about 100 things lined up and a lot of writing to do. And it's like, I try to make the videos as good as they can possibly be. And the feedback you get sometimes, usually from the parents who are more excited than the children, is among the best type of feedback you can get.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids I have 6-year-old twins, and they're very much like into that right now. And it's, the first few years, I was the one more excited, but I feel like we're finally starting to be on the same level as far as like, yeah, Santa. Like, I think they just asked me like last week. They're like, when's Santa coming? Like, what are we gonna do for Halloween? What are we gonna do for Christmas? So,
well, you know what? When our interview's over, I'll get your contact information, and we'll get your children out a Santa video.
Oh, wow. That would be awesome. Thank you.
You got it.
So I want to close on this, since we're talking about, we started talking about a black comedy and a horror movie and how nice you are and Christmas. So we kind of went all over the place, but I kind of want to pick your brain and ask you if you have a nice story about your old boss, the Grinch, Vince McMahon. If you have a story that shows a more gentler side of him.
Man. Well, this might not be a gentler side, but coming off right on the heels of the Hell in a Cell match, later on that evening, he came into me in the dressing room and he said, "You have no idea how much I appreciate what you've just done with this company, but I never want to see anything like that again." So he put what he called a governor on me. And so I think that was nice and gentle. If you gave me time, I could come up with a bunch of stories showing the lighter hearted side. At one time, I wanted to write a book similar to Chicken Soup for the Soul, but do it with wrestling stories, because there have been so many feel good stories. And Vince said at the time, "I'm not sure, Mick. I think that might come across as being self-serving." And at that time, this is before they even acknowledged the incredible relationship they had for 25 years with Make-A-Wish. So eventually, when WWE became public, and when there was a lot of heat from outside sources about the show and how awful we all were, then that relationship came to light. But I think that shows a side of Vince that not too many people would know about, that he resisted having me write a book because it might seem self-serving to WWE.
I would absolutely read that. I used to read the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul ones, and just for a little a little perspective, a little positive energy. So maybe when we hang up, you can call him and be like, "Hey Vince, remember that idea?"
Because all of us have at least one story. At least one. Usually a lot more than one. And if it's just one guy, and the nice thing about those books, I read them all the time, especially the ones with the Christmas slant, or, Chicken Soup for the Soul, about forgiveness, and, your angels, whatever, is you can just read one chapter at a time, for bad or whatever, and they make you feel good. And I think, coming from a wrestler's perspective, obviously I don't think Chicken Soup for the Soul is going to do a wrestling version, but we could use them as an inspiration. I will. I'll I would love traveling around and collecting stories from the guys, or even if somebody from WWE did it. I think that would be a nice collection of heartwarming stories.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So maybe we'll have that to look forward to in the future. But for now, we have 12-Hour Shift coming out October 2nd. Mick Foley, thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Have a good
All
afternoon.
right. Have a nice day.